Will the Senate please come to order? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Aquino. Senator Awa. Senator Chang. Senator DeCoit. Senator Dela Cruz. Senator Elefante.
Here.
Senator Favela. Senator Fukunaga. Senator Gabbard. Senator Hashimoto. Senator Ihara.
Present.
Senator Inoue.
Present.
Senator Kanuha. Senator Keoho Kalole. Senator Kidani. Senator Kim. Senator Lee. Senator McKelvey.
Aye.
Senator Moriwaki.
Present.
Senator Rhodes. Senator Richards.
Here.
Senator San Buenaventura. Senator Shimabukuro. Senator Wakai. Mr. President,
Present.
all 25 members are present.
Thank you. The chair has read the journal of the preceding day and approves the same. Anybody following the order of the day, we'd normally get into introductions now. However, we have two time-sensitive issues, so we are going to take up a motion to reconsider House Bill 1911 HD2 SD2 CD1, and then we are going to take up floor amendments so they can be decked for 48 hours to be voted for on Friday, and then we will resume to introductions and the rest of the order of the day as it's been presented. Hearing no objections, Madam Clerk, can we start with miscellaneous business, please?
We are moving to page 45, miscellaneous business, reconsideration of previous action, House Bill 1911, Conference Draft 1, relating to the judiciary.
Senator Kanuha.
Mr. President, I move that the Senate reconsider its previous action in passing HB number 1911 CD1 on final reading on Friday, April 26, and place it on the fiscal ordinary calendar for further action later this morning.
Senator DeCoit.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Senator Kanuha.
This motion is, Mr. President, this motion is being offered to ensure consistency with past Senate practice regarding the passage of appropriation bills, and I urge my colleagues to support it.
Any further discussion? Any objections? If not, the motion is carried. Members' final reading on HB number 1911 CD1 is deferred to the beginning of the fiscal ordinary calendar. Madam Clerk, can we go to floor amendments, please?
Yes, Mr. President. On page 14, floor amendments. Conference Committee Report number 85-24, final reading of Senate Bill 1511, Conference Draft 1, relating to the Research Corporation of the University of Hawaii.
Senator Kim.
Mr. President, I wish to offer a floor amendment for Senate Bill number 1511 CD1.
Madam Clerk, please identify the floor amendment.
Floor amendment number 6, proposing an amendment to Senate Bill 1511, Conference Draft 1, copies of which have been distributed to the members.
Senator Kim.
Mr. President, I move that floor amendment number 6 be adopted.
Senator Kanuha.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Senator Kim.
Thank you, Mr. President. This bill was a carryover measure in the House, and in the final draft, error was made in correcting the date that grandfathered any contracts that would have been entered into up to the time this measure is passed, and we didn't want to affect any contracts become null and void because of this. And so therefore the date was June 30th, 2023. It is now June 30th, 2024.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Any objections? If not, the motion is carried. Floor Amendment 6 has been adopted. Senator Kim.
Mr. President, I move to separate Senate Bill number 1511 CD1 from the Conference Committee Report 85-24.
Senator Kanuha.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Any objections? If not, the motion is carried. The clerk is directed to file Conference Committee Report number 8524. 48 hours notice is hereby given for final reading of Senate Bill number 1511, Conference Draft 2.
Conference Committee Report number 182-24, final reading of Senate Bill 63, Conference Draft 1, relating to nurses.
Senator San Buenaventura.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wish to offer floor amendment to SB number 63 CD1.
Madam Clerk, please identify the amendment.
Floor Amendment number 7, proposing an amendment to Senate Bill 63, Conference Draft 1, copies of which have been distributed to the members.
Senator San Buenaventura.
Mr. President, I move that floor amendment number 7 be adopted.
Senator Keoho Kalole.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Senator San Buenaventura.
The amendments are numerous, and which are the following. On page 1, line 15, add the word "and" to the end of section 1A3. On page 1, line 16 to 17, remove the current language in section 1A4 and insert the following language. The board has determined that no disciplinary action has been taken or is pending with a nursing authority. On page 2, lines 1 to 3, remove the entirety of section 1A5. On page 3, lines 1 to 3, remove the current language in section 1B4. Insert the following language. The board has determined that no disciplinary action has been taken or is pending with a nursing authority. On page 9, lines 15 to 16, remove the words July 1, 2024, provide that section 1 shall take effect on in section 8 so that the effective date is simply January 1, 2025.
Is there any further discussion? Any objections? If not, the motion is carried. Floor amendment number 7 has been adopted. Senator San Buenaventura.
Thank you. Mr. President, I hope to separate SB number 63, CD1 from Conference Committee Report number 182-24.
Senator Keoho Kalole.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Any objections? If not, the motion is carried. The clerk is directed to file Conference Committee Report number 182-24. 48-hour notice is hereby given for final reading of SB number 63, CD2.
Conference Committee Report Number 18824, final reading of House Bill 40, Conference Draft 1 relating to the General Fund.
Senator Aquino.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wish to offer a floor amendment to House Bill 40 CD1.
Madam Clerk, please identify the amendment.
Floor Amendment Number 8, proposing an amendment to House Bill 40, Conference Draft 1, copies of which have been distributed to the members.
Senator Aquino.
Mr. President, I move that floor amendment number 8 be adopted.
Senator Moriwaki.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Senator Aquino.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. This floor amendment makes corrections to the dollar amount in the expenditure ceiling declaration. This is necessary to allow the legislature to exceed the general fund expenditure ceiling.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Any objections? If not, the motion is carried. Floor amendment number 8 has been adopted. Senator Aquino.
Mr. President, I move to separate HB 40 CD1 from Conference Committee Report 188-24.
Senator Moriwaki.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Any objections? If not, the motion is carried. The clerk is directed to file the Conference Committee Report number 188-24. 48-hour notice is hereby given for final reading of HB number 40 CD2.
Conference Committee Report Number 189-24, final reading of Senate Bill 3068, Conference Draft 1, making appropriations for wildlife recovery.
Senator
I'm
Wakai.
sorry, wildfire recovery.
Wildfire, yes. Senator Wakai.
Mr. President, I wish to offer a floor amendment to Senate Bill number 3068 CD1.
Madam Clerk, please identify the amendment.
Floor Amendment Number 9, proposing an amendment to Senate Bill 3068, Conference Draft 1, copies of which have been distributed to the members.
Senator Wakai.
Mr. President, I move that floor amendment number 9 be adopted.
Senator Hashimoto.
Mr. President, I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Senator Wakai.
Mr. President and members, this floor amendment is needed for 6 specific reasons. It will lapse the $230 million in general funds for BED 170, which was converted to GEO bonds in HB 1800 CD1. It will also lapse the $200 million in general funds for the School Facilities Agency, since $100 million was converted to GEO bonds in HB 1800 CD1. It will also correct 6 FTEs being appropriated to the Department of Human Services in Section 7, so they are federally funded. It will also correct 6 FTEs and $424,344 in general funds for Hawai'i, not the Department of Human Services. It will also change the program ID in Section 16 for Defense 101 to Defense 110. And lastly, add additional language to to the expenditure ceiling declaration to include aggregate totals from HB 40 and SB 3068.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Any objections? If not, the motion is carried. The clerk is directed to file Conference Committee Report number 189-24. 48-hour notice is hereby given for final reading of SB number 3068 CD2. Okay, I'm sorry, let's take two. Any objections? Hearing none, the motion is carried. The clerk is directed to file the Conference Committee Report number 189. And
Conference Committee Report Number 190-24, final reading of House Bill 2374, Conference Draft 1, making emergency appropriations for public employment cost items.
Senator Aquino.
Mr. President, I wish to offer a floor amendment to House Bill 2374 CD1.
Madam Clerk, please identify the amendment.
Floor Amendment Number 10, proposing an amendment to House Bill 2374, Conference Draft 1, copies of which have been distributed to the members.
Senator Aquino.
Mr. President, I move that floor amendment number 10 be adopted.
Senator Moriwaki.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Senator Aquino.
Thank you, Mr. President. This floor amendment is necessary to include UPW employees under bargaining units 1 and 10 that have temporary hazard pay duty settlements with the judiciary. The floor amendment also inserts additional language to the expenditure ceiling declaration to include aggregate totals from House Bill 40, Senate Bill 3068, and House Bill 2374.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Any objections? If not, the motion is carried. Floor Amendment number 10 has been adopted. Senator Aquino.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that House Bill 2374 CD1 move to separate HB 2374 CD1 from Conference Committee Report 190-24.
Thank you. Senator Moriwaki.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Any objections? If not, the motion is carried. The clerk is directed to file Conference Committee Report number 190-24. 48-hour notice is hereby given for final reading of HB number 2374, CD2.
Mr. President, we are on approval of the journal.
The chair has read the journal of the preceding day and approves the same. Are there any introductions this morning? Senator Shimabukuro.
Thank you,
And then
Mr.
Senator
Pres-
Ihara, and then Senator Kidani.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today, I'm happy to announce that we have joining us in the chamber a motivated group of students from Nanakuli High Intermediate Schools, Participation in Democracy and Great America Problems class. And they're under the direction of Kumu Julie Reyes Oda and their EA Selma Amaral. And I'd like to ask them to all stand and permission to enter their names in the journal.
So ordered.
So would everyone from Nanakuli High Intermediate School please stand to be recognized? Thank you for doing this.
Senator Ihara.
Mr. President, I would like to introduce a special guest in the gallery. In 1992, Mr. President, when House Finance Committee Vice Chair, now Senator Carol Fukunaga, got funding for the new public access room, we didn't know how valuable or popular it would be in Hawaii to Hawaii residents. Now, 30 years later, Hawaii's current and most successful public access room director, Virginia Beck, will be retiring after 19 years staffing PAR, the last 9 as its director. I would like to ask Virginia Beck to stand and be recognized for your outstanding service to the legislature and the state of Hawaii. While she's standing, my Chief of Staff, Melissa Von Voris, will present Virginia a joint House and Senate certificate that extols her achievements at the Public Access Room. Joining Virginia in the gallery are Charlotte Carter Yamauchi, LRB Director. Could you stand to be recognized? Andre Langhurst Eicholt, incoming PR Coordinator. Courtney Morazinski, PR Assistant Researcher. And Keanu Young, PR Assistant Coordinator. Thank you all for joining this special recognition from a distance in the Senate Gallery. With her Public Access Room team, Virginia has greatly expanded the reach of Hawaii Legislative Services by conducting workshops on the neighbor islands and have increased testimonies from neighbor island residents by submitting virtual testimonies. She's also produced an easily accessible website that has been recognized by a national award. So it is with much gratitude that we bid Virginia Beck a well-deserved retirement with all our best wishes and much appreciation to you, Virginia Beck. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Kidani. Senator Kidani.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am honored to present to you and our colleagues this year's Citizen Scholars Awardees. This program is a collaboration between the Hawaii Lodging and Tourism Association, the Hawaii State Department of Education, and the Honolulu Advertiser. Mahalo nui to Superintendent Hayashi and Hawaii Tourism Authority President Mufi Hanneman for joining us today in the gallery. Please stand and be recognized. Started in 2005, the Citizen Scholars Program honors the best and the brightest from the Hawaii State Department of Education's public high schools. 42 students, one from each school, are selected and receive $1,000 in scholarship funds from Hawaii Lodging and Tourism Authority sponsor organizations. Out of the 42, 4 scholars are picked to represent their respective counties and receive an additional $2,500. Also, 2 students, 1 male and 1 female, are awarded as the top 2 students of the class of 2024, and these 2 receive an extra $5,000. I would like to call upon the senators who represent these 6 outstanding individuals to share their accomplishments. I now yield the floor to the senator from Eva Beach, Senator Favela.
Thank you, Senator Kidani. I'm proud to announce this year's top female student comes from my district. Alana Nicole Relota is from Campbell High School, plans to attend Princeton University. Alana is aimed to be a physician scientist. She's a member of the Voice of Campbell Ohana, a student-founded organization at our high school. The Math STEM and STEM Enrichment Club, the National Honor Society, and she also played a part of the soft tennis team. Alana recently, our reason for science is to embedded into becoming the first of her family. She's a daughter of 2 Filipino immigrants to enter the research field of making science and healthcare more accessible. Colleagues, please join me in congratulating Alana Nicole Relota from James Campbell High School. Please, sir. And now I want to turn over the floor to Senate Representing Hilo, Senator Inouye.
Mahalo, Senator Favela. It is my honor and privilege to recognize the top male student of the Citizen Scholars Class of 2024, Branson Hatekenaka from Hilo High School, our proud Viking. He will be attending the University of Southern California and pursuing a degree in astronautical engineering. Branson has dreamed to be an aerospace engineer since the 8th grade. He completed MIT's Introduction to Technology, Engineering and Science semester program and was the only participant from Hawaii within that cohort. Branson has been actively engaged in the Hawaii State Student Council for 3 years, currently serving as the executive chairperson. Colleagues, please join me in congratulating our Viking, Branson Hatikanaka from Hilo High School. Mahalo. I now turn the floor over to the Chair of Education Committee, Senator Kidani.
Mahalo, Senator Inouye. Mr. President, while she could not be here today due to her participation in her school's May Day program, I'd like to recognize Lehua Norris from Konawaina High School, the winner for the County of Hawaii. She will be attending Yale University, where she hopes to double major in ethics, politics, and economics and art history. She is currently the secretary of the Hawaii State Student Council and has held internships in both the offices of the State House of Representatives and U.S. Senate. She is passionate about spreading awareness on the lack of access to women's health care in Hawaii. She is the co-founder of an environmentalist club, Kokua Lima, where she collaborated with her school's Pacific and Asian Affairs Club and to rid Camilo Beach of over 300 pounds of debris. Colleagues, although she's not here, please join me in congratulating Lehua Norris from Konawaina High School. And I now turn the floor over to Senator DeCoite.
Mahalo, Senator Kidani and colleagues. On behalf of Senate President Kochi from Kauai, it is my privilege to honor Priscilla Matthews from Kauai High School, the winner representing Kauai County. Priscilla plans to attend Pomona College and double major in international relations and public policy analysis, attend law school, and become a child advocate attorney. Priscilla has been involved in various activities and leadership positions, including mock trial, captain, drum major, and a co-founder of the Women's Empowerment Club. She has also interned with the Hawaii State House of Representatives and U.S. Senate. She has 7 years of playing the French horn and 14 years of piano under her belt. She has participated in the Honors Band, the Kauai All-Island Band, and the Hawaii All-State Marching Band, which marched in 2024 at the Rose Bowl Parade. Colleagues, please join me in congratulating Priscilla Matthews from Kauai High School. I now turn the floor over to Senator Hashimoto, who represents Maui High School.
Colleagues, today we are honoring Chelsea Kono from Maui High School, who is the Maui County winner. Chelsea plans on studying economics or international studies at Johns Hopkins University in the fall. Chelsea is the president of her school's National Honor Society, an intern under U.S. Senator Brian Schatz, and is a student representative on the Committee on Paralegals and Other Non-Lawyers. During her time on this committee, she has organized resources to help the cause of the Maui wildfires. She competes in cybersecurity competitions, spearheads volunteer initiatives with the Maui High School Interact Club, and engages in legal enrichment with her mentor, Judge Joseph Cardoza. Please join me in congratulating Chelsea Kono from Maui High School. Please rise, and welcome to your Senate. I now turn the floor over to Senator Oahu, who represents Waialua High School and Intermediate School.
Mahalo. The winner for the County of Honolulu comes from the North Shore from Waialua High and Intermediate School, Cayuga Kai Jade Garcia de Guzman. Kai plans on attending the University of Pennsylvania. Her life goal is to build more equitable, affordable OBGYN care for Hawaii's underserved women. She is a Harvard Book Prize awardee, and Governor Green recognized her, amongst other students, for raising awareness of injustices faced by Hawaii's youth. She's ranked in the top of her class throughout high school, all while taking care of her 3 younger siblings since she was 9 years old. Please congratulate Cayuga Kai Jade Garcia de Guzman from Waialua High and Intermediate. And I now turn it back over to Eke Kenekoa Pelekikena Hope.
Senator Kidani.
Thank you. Mahalo and congratulations to these outstanding citizen scholars. We wish them well and look forward to seeing them in the future, as they will be great leaders for our state. Again, mahalo to all of you and congratulations.
Thank you. Any further introductions? Senator McKelvey and then Senator Favela.
Thank you, Mr. President. I couldn't help but give them an introduction since they came all the way from Lahaina and braved the gauntlet at Kiawe Street in Oluwalu. Just want to welcome Lahaina Strong and my Lahaina friends who are here in the gallery today for the final show. So please stand up and be recognized by your state senate. Mahalo, everybody.
Senator Favela.
Thank you, Senate President. I know we are recognizing and honoring our children and accomplishments, but I want to recognize the parents. So can all the parents of the scholars stand up, please? Can the parents stand up? Because if it wasn't for you, they wouldn't be here. Thank you, Senate President.
Thank you. Do we have any further introductions? If not, Madam Clerk.
Governor's message number 10 requests the immediate consideration and passage of various Senate bills.
File.
On page 2, House Communication number 825 informs the Senate that the House has reconsidered its action in disagreeing to the amendments made by the Senate to various House bills. And on pages 2 through 7, House Communication number 826 informs the Senate that the House agreed to the amendments made by the Senate to various House concurrent resolutions and that said resolutions were adopted.
File.
On pages 7 through 10, Standing Committee Report numbers 3958 to 3964 for one-day notice.
So ordered. If there are no objections from the members, we did take up our miscellaneous business, so let's proceed, Madam Clerk. We are on the final reading non-fiscal consent calendar.
Members, we're on page 10, advise and consent.
Oh, I'm sorry. If there are no objections from the members, we will be taking advise and consent on consent.
On pages 10 to 13, Standing Committee Report numbers 3943 to 3957 on Governor's messages for adoption.
Is there any discussion? Senator DeCoit.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for a ruling on potential conflict regarding GM number 694.
As you have noted in previous votes, the individual is an employee of your husband. Therefore, Senator DeCoit will be excused from voting on that item.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Any further discussion? Senator Favela?
Yes, Senate President, I want to pretty much strong support for GM 746 and want to insert comments to the journal.
So ordered. Further discussion, Senator Shimabukuro?
Thank you, Mr. President. Sorry.
At least you got the body right.
Yeah, sorry. I got the right body. Thank you, Mr. President. In support of GM 746.
Please proceed.
Your Hawaiian Affairs Committee notes that Mrs. Sonoy Marfil, her husband and teen children reside in the Nanakuli Hawaiian homestead. Further, she currently works as the Chief Program Officer at the Institute for Native Pacific Education and Culture, where she's been employed since 2010. Her responsibilities encompass the strategic direction of all programming, development of strong relationships with foundations, businesses and community leaders, and participation in development efforts through grant application and reporting. Mrs. Marfil is also involved in her community, currently serving as the president of the Nanikapono Hawaiian Civic Club and as parent liaison for Kapapahana o Maili Kukahi. Based on the testimony received and meeting the nominee, your Hawaiian Affairs Committee recommends that the Senate advise and consent to her confirmation to the Hawaiian Homes Commission. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Senator DeCoite?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would also like to put my strong support behind GM 605, Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism nominee for strategic broadband, Mr. Chung Chang, as well as GM 671, gubernatorial nominee Jennifer Wilkinson.
Thank you. Further discussion?
Thank you.
Not any objections, with the exception of GM number 694, where Senator DeCoite will be marked excused. Hearing none, the respective governor's messages have been, nominees for the respective governor's messages have been confirmed.
Mr. President, may I be permitted a late introduction?
Please proceed.
Well, thank you so much. Colleagues, I'm honored to introduce Ms. Sonoy Marfil. She's our newest Hawaiian Homes Commissioner. Can you please stand to be recognized? And would the family, friends, and colleagues of Ms. Marfil also stand to be recognized, and I'd like to enter their names to the journal.
So ordered.
Yeah, please stand. She brought a big gang of supporters. Thank you so much.
Do we have any other late introductions? Senator Gabbard, then Senator DeCoite.
Mr. President, I have a late introduction. I'd like to welcome to the morning to the gallery King Leaf, GM 646. Congratulations on your confirmation to the Advisory Committee on Pesticides. Would you please stand?
Oh.
There he is. Mahalo for stepping forward to serve.
Senator DeCoite.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would also like to do a late introduction. I would like to welcome and congratulate Mr. Chung Chang for becoming the Strategic Broadband Coordinator of DBED. He is present in the gallery this morning. If you could please stand and be recognized. Along with his DBED Ohana and Hawaii Broadband and Digital Equity team, Mr. Bert Lum, Amber Turnus, and Kara Binger, please also give them a warm welcome. If you would stand, please. Mr. President, if I could also introduce here with us Ms. Jennifer Wilkinson for the Community-Based Economic Development and Advisory Council. I would like to welcome and congratulate you, Jennifer Wilkinson, for becoming a member of our Community-Based Economic Development Advisory Council. She's present in the gallery with us this morning, and thank you for standing. Please give her a warm welcome. Mahalo. And if I could also enter your names into the journal.
So ordered.
Thank you.
Do we have any other late introductions? Senator Aquino.
Thank you, Senate President. I would also like to make a few late introductions. I'd like to introduce two newly confirmed members of the Hawaii Labor Relations Board and the Labor Industrial Relations Appeals Board. Colleagues, please hold your applause until I've introduced them and their special guests. Clark Hirota, okay, of the Hawaii Labor Relations Board, please stand. Okay, he's joined by his wife Jill and daughters Emma and Jamie. Please stand as well. Also, we have HLRB Chair Marcus Oshiro. Please stand. As well as member Stacy Moniz. Okay, thank you very much. Please be seated. Also, we have Harry Yee of the Labor and Industrial Relations Appeals Board. Please stand. And he is joined by his wife, Laurie. Please stand. as well as Charlie Taguchi. Please stand as well. Okay, thank you very much and welcome to the Senate.
Thank you. Senator Keoho Kalole.
Thank you, Mr. President. Joining our new nominee is a former senator, a friend, and a resident of the Windward side, Charlie Taguchi, with his wife Elaine. Please rise and welcome.
Thank you. Any further late introductions? If not, Madam Clerk.
Final reading of the non-fiscal consent calendar on pages 15 to 29. Final reading of the non-fiscal consent calendar beginning with Conference Committee Report Number 6 on House Bill 1944, Conference Draft 1 on page 15 to Conference Committee Report Number 183 on Senate Bill 3139, Conference Draft 1 on page 29.
Not sure if I read the disclaimer before, so if there are no objections, we will be taking these matters on consent. Is there any discussion? Senator Kanuha.
Thank you, Mr. President. In support of CCR 54-24 and CCR 122-24. If I could enter written remarks into the journal in support of these two measures.
So ordered. Further discussion, Senator Wakai.
Mr. President, I'd like to rise in support of two measures, CCR 69-24, that's SB 3312, as well as CCR 173-24, that is SB 2841, and if I could be allowed to submit written comments.
So ordered. Further discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. All bills on the non-fiscal consent calendar, from House Bill 1944 CD1 on page 15 to SB 3139 CD1 on page 29, pass final reading.
Final reading of the non-fiscal ordinary calendar beginning on page 29. Conference Committee Report Number 3-24, final reading of House Bill 2058, Conference Draft 1, relating to dangerous dogs.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Reservations, Senator McKelvey. Any no votes? No votes, Senator Awar.
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. HB 2058 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 4-24, final reading of House Bill 2458, Conference Draft 1, relating to the Department of Law Enforcement.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? No votes, Senator Awar.
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. HB 2458 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 5-24, final reading of House Bill 1916, Conference Draft 1, relating to the disclosure of personal information associated with certain public servants.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? No votes, Senator Awar.
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. HB 1916 CD1 passes final reading.
On page 30, Conference Committee Report Number 9-24, final reading of House Bill 2315, Conference Draft 1, relating to condominiums.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? No votes, Senator Awar.
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. HB 2315 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 12-24, final reading of Senate Bill 2845, Conference Draft 1, relating to firearms.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? No votes for Senators Favela, Richards, Awa, Gabbard.
21 ayes, 4 noes.
Thank you. SB 2845 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 14-24, final reading of Senate Bill 3034, Conference Draft 1, relating to penal liability.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Reservations, Senator McKelvey. Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. SB 3034 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 16-24, final reading of Senate Bill 2347, Conference Draft 1, relating to crime.
Is there any discussion? Senator San Buenaventura.
Yeah, I stand in opposition to SB 2347. Short discussion.
Please proceed.
Thank you very much. My opposition stems from the fact that, one, this bill removes the discretion of the judge to determine on a case-by-case basis whether or not the punishment fits the crime. And second, I believe that by our passage, we may actually be violative of the double jeopardy because it creates a second crime for a fourth offense. So not only will the defendant be convicted of the fourth offense under the misdemeanor charge, but also it automatically triggers a secondary conviction. For those reasons, I'm in opposition.
Thank you. Further discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Reservations for Senators Favela, Fukunaga, Ihara, Inoue, Decoit, Kidani. Any no votes? Senator McKelvey, Senator San Buenaventura.
23 ayes, 2 noes.
Thank you. SB 2347, CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 17-24, Final Reading of Senate Bill 2333, Conference Draft 1, relating to election audits.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? No votes, Senator Awa.
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. SB 2333, CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 18-24, Final Reading of Senate Bill 2217, Conference Draft 1, relating to reporting periods.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? No votes, Senator Awa.
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. SB 2217, CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 20-24, Final Reading of Senate Bill 2193, Conference Draft 1, relating to computer crime.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. SB 2193, CD1 passes final reading.
On page 31, Conference Committee Report Number 23-24, Final Reading of House Bill 2478, Conference Draft 1, relating to the Pacific Marine Fisheries Compact.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? No votes, Senator Awa.
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. HB 2478, CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 25-24, Final Reading of Senate Bill 3011, Conference Draft 1, relating to noise.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Reservations for Senator Decoit and Favela, Richards. Any no votes? No vote for Senator Kanuha, Awa, Keohokalole.
22 ayes, 3 noes.
Thank you. SB 3011, CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 30-24, Final Reading of Senate Bill 2718, Conference Draft 1, relating to administrative procedures.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. SB 2718, CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 32-24, Final Reading of Senate Bill 2557, Conference Draft 1, relating to legal representation.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? No vote for Senator Awa.
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. SB 2557, CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 33-24, Final Reading of Senate Bill 2476, Conference Draft 1, relating to dental hygienists.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Oh, sorry, Senator Kidani.
Thank you, colleagues. I rise in support of Senate Bill 2476, HD2 CD1, which authorizes licensed dental hygienists to conduct preventive dental sealant screenings and administer dental sealants within school-based oral health programs under specified conditions. It is a sobering reality that Hawaii scored the lowest in a nationwide exam on oral health, and in recent years showed little movement towards addressing the financial implications of healthcare costs and complications associated with dental problems, especially in low-income children who are at much greater risk of tooth decay. School-based programs offer a cost-effective avenue to reach those who are disproportionately affected by tooth decay by allowing licensed dental hygienists to administer preventive dental sealant procedures in school settings. Hawaii's children deserve access to quality oral health care regardless of their socioeconomic status. Senate Bill 2476, HD2CD1, is a solution-oriented approach to combat the pervasive issue of tooth decay among our youth. Mahalo, Mr. President, and now you the floor.
Thank you. Further discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. SB 2476 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 35-24, final reading of Senate Bill 2066, Conference Draft 1, relating to housing.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Reservation, Senator Fukunaga. Any no votes? No vote for Senator McKelvey. Reservations for Senators McKelvey and Fukunaga. No vote for Senator Awa. Any other no votes?
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. SB 2066 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 36-24, final reading of Senate Bill 2721, Conference Draft 1, relating to ocean recreation.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? No vote, Senator Awa.
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. SB 2721 CD1 passes final reading.
On page 32, Conference Committee Report Number 37-24, final reading of Senate Bill 795, Conference Draft 1, relating to taxes.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have Senator Favela?
Mr. President, I rise in support of Conference Committee Report 3724, Senate Bill 795 SD2 HD1 CD1, relating to the film tax.
Please proceed.
This measure will help production companies making reasonable efforts with the tax code, with helping with adhere the tax code. I support this bill because the smaller local production companies will not be at risk of over-technology issues. These companies have quality of Hawaii motion picture, digital media, film production, tax credit. The Tax Foundation of Hawaii said that a written testimony in this bill will always find and restore a way of for sanity of the administration of the credit. So, colleagues, I ask you guys to please support this bill. Thank you. Mahalo, Senate President.
Thank you. Further discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. SB 795 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 40-24, final reading of House Bill 2457, Conference Draft 1, relating to the Department of Law Enforcement.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Reservations? No votes. No vote for Senator Awa.
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. HB 2457 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 41-24, final reading of House Bill 2193, Conference Draft 1, relating to fireworks.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? No vote for Senator Awa.
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. HB 2193 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 43-24, final reading of House Bill 1633, Conference Draft 1, relating to contractors.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Reservations for Senator Favela. Any no votes? No votes for Senators Awa and Elefante.
23 ayes, 2 noes.
Thank you. HB 1633 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 44-24, final reading of House Bill 2090, Conference Draft 1, relating to housing.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? No vote for Senator Kim. Reservations for Senator Kim.
25 ayes.
Thank you. HB 2090 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 46-24, final reading of House Bill 2475, Conference Draft 1, relating to commercial ocean activity.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? No vote, Senator Awa.
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. HB 2475 CD1 passes final reading.
On page 33, Conference Committee Report Number 48-24, final reading of House Bill 2298, Conference Draft 1, relating to consumer protection.
Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Senator Richards,
I rise in support.
please proceed.
This has been a long time coming. We've worked very diligently on this legislation throughout the session, but realistically, it's been coming for many years. I'd like to thank the stakeholders, both the farmers and the processors, for coming to the table. This elevates Kona coffee, actually regional coffee, by using the geographical description, and will raise the quality of our coffee we are selling throughout the state. But more importantly, we're supporting the farmers to increase that as we strive towards more food self-reliance, food security. I ask my colleagues to support.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, Senator Kanuha,
Thank you, Mr. President. In support,
proceed.
if I could enter written remarks in support of this historic legislation into the journal, please.
So ordered for the discussion. If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? No vote for Senator Gabbard.
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. HB 2298 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 49-24, final reading of House Bill 2020, Conference Draft 1, relating to renewable energy.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Reservations, Senator McKelvey. Any no votes? No votes, Senator Owa.
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. HB 2020 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 50-24, final reading of House Bill 2390, Conference Draft 1, relating to renewable energy.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? No votes for Senators Favela and Awa.
23 ayes, 23 ayes, 2 noes.
Thank you. HB 2390 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 52-24, final reading of House Bill 2369, Conference Draft 1, relating to the Hawaii Community-Based Economic Development Technical and Financial Assistance Program.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? No vote for Senator Owa.
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. HB 2369 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 53-24, final reading of House Bill 2278, Conference Draft 1, relating to labeling of macadamia nuts.
Is there any discussion? Senator Richards,
I rise in support.
please proceed.
Thank you. Again, this is about agriculture, truth in labeling and promoting what we can do and grow here in our state. The MacNut, the stakeholders came to the table, both our processors and our farmers, tried to seek through and find that common ground to get this passed. This piece of legislation, again, as I borrow Senator Kanuha's words, is historical. We had everybody at the table, everybody agreed. This was a consensus that we were able to bring forth. So I ask my colleagues to support.
Thank you. Senator Kanuha, do you have comments on this tricky bill?
Please.
Proceed.
May I request comments entered into the journal on this historic bill?
So ordered for the discussion. If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. HB 2278 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 55-24, final reading of House Bill 2553, Conference Draft 1, relating to pharmacists.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Reservations? Any no votes? No vote for Senator Awa.
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. HB 2553 CD1 passes final reading.
On page 34, Conference Committee Report Number 57-24, final reading of House Bill 1577, Conference Draft 1, relating to motor vehicle towing fees.
Is there any discussion? If not, Senator Favela.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of Conference Committee Report 5724, House Bill 1577, HD1, SD1, CD1, relating to motor vehicle towing fees.
Please proceed.
Mr. President, first of all, I want to thank Senator Chris Lee for his staff and working with me to improve the language of this bill for the benefit of the towing industry. To introduce similar measures that increase the amounts of towing companies that could receive various tolls. Did you know that the towing fees wasn't increased since 2008, almost 16 years ago? Yet the cost of business keeping going up, rise of fuel costs, increasing of labor costs, higher liability, property, working comprehensive, TDI, medical, and various of insurance. These fees for towing of the vehicle, 75, towing with dolly would be 85. This is a small step to increase in the right direction. And again, big mahalos to Senator Lee in transportation in helping working something out for the towing industry. Again, I ask my colleagues to please support this measure. Mahalo.
Thank you. Further discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? No vote for Senator Awa.
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. HB 1577, CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 58-24, final reading of Senate Bill 2687, Conference Draft 1, relating to elections.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? No vote for Senator Awa.
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. SB 2687, CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 61-24, final reading of Senate Bill 2182, Conference Draft 1, relating to ocean stewardship.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? No vote for Senator Awa.
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. SB 2182, CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 63-24, final reading of Senate Bill 2834, Conference Draft 1, relating to the Landlord-Tenant Code.
Is there any discussion? If Senator San Buenaventura, then Senator McKelvey.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise with minor reservations. I do appreciate the author's intent of creating uniformity upon death of a tenant, but my concern is that it may override the Uniform Probate Code, which already has uniformity in transfers of property worth $50,000 or less that has been accepted by government agencies like the DMV, like by the courts, by the banks, and for those reasons, minor reservations.
So noted. Senator McKelvey.
Actually, I just wanted to speak in support of it.
Proceed.
Normally I wouldn't, but this bill, I think, is sadly going to become a useful thing for families of recent tragedies. So I'm actually glad this measure is passing, minor issues aside.
Thank you. Further discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Reservations for Senator San Buenaventura. Any other reservations? Any no votes? No vote for Senator Awa.
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. SB 2834, CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 68-24, final reading of Senate Bill 2350, Conference Draft 1, relating to noise pollution.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? No vote for Senator Awa.
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. SB 2350, CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 72-24, final reading of Senate Bill 2132, Conference Draft 1, relating to the Residential Landlord-Tenant Code.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? No vote for Senator Awa.
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. SB 2132, CD1 passes final reading.
On page 35, Conference Committee Report Number 73-24, final reading of Senate Bill 2342, Conference Draft 1, relating to transportation.
Is there any discussion? Senator Elefante.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in opposition.
Please proceed.
There are a lot of key elements on this bill, such as addressing increased penalties, fines for driving without insurance, and the list goes on. On the other hand, my serious concerns are on page 7, Part 2, Section 3 of the bill, which I'm unable to support, which have liability insurance minimums, limited coverage minimums at $40,000 per person and $80,000 per accident, which would double our current limits now. While I understand it's been 25 years since we changed the minimums, I don't believe this is the appropriate time to potentially increase these minimums. In a time in which cost of living elements are increasing, insurance prices are going up, and other costs are increasing, it would be difficult for me to support a bill that would cause a substantial potential increase to ratepayers. The overall main concern is motor vehicle drivers choosing not to insure because of potential increase in minimum costs. For these reasons, I'm unable to support SB 2342 and will be voting no. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Senator Favela?
Thank you, Senate President. I'm also voting no on this bill, and if I can have the previous speakers' words inserted to the general journal as my own. Thank you.
So ordered. Further discussion? Senator Rhodes.
Thank you, Mr. President. In support.
Please proceed.
I think that the fact that the rates have not gone up in 25 years indicates that the heart of the bill is that it's an inflation adjustment. And for those who are injured by drivers who may be fully insured under the laws of our state or have the minimum that are required by the laws of our state, that we have a $40,000 maximum per accident is $40,000 just doesn't go very far these days, and especially considering that medical expenses have, at least up until the passage of Obamacare, increased at a much higher rate of inflation than regular inflation. So we're well past time to have a higher coverage minimum to protect those who are injured by the negligence of others. Mahalo.
Thank you. Further discussion? If not, Senator Decoit?
Thank you, Mr. President. In opposition.
Please proceed.
If I could have the words of the senator from District 16 inserted into the journal if there was my own.
So ordered. Further discussion? Senator McKelvey?
Yes, Mr. President, also in opposition.
Please proceed.
The net effect of this now, nothing happens in a vacuum, but for my area specifically will be a lot of people by necessity are going to drive with no insurance because they can't afford the new minimums. I mean, everything's going up across the board, and then in our particular case, everything's come apart at the seams. So while noble as it is, this would be a tremendously horrible time. And I know the net effect would be drivers with no insurance driving around because they simply couldn't afford it. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Senator Richards?
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in opposition.
Please proceed.
For the reasons that have been articulated, my concern is that we will increase our number of uninsured. So for that reason, I cannot support. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Senator Aquino?
In opposition, written comments to the journal, please.
So ordered. Further discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Reservations for Senator Ihara, Senator Shimabukuro, Morawaki, San Buenaventura. Any no votes? No vote for Senator Kidani, Senator Decoit, Senator Kim, Senator Inouye, Aquino, Fukunaga, McKelvey, Awa, Favela, Elefante, and Richards. Apparently I went too fast with the no votes. Raise your hand. I thought it was 15-10. No vote for Senator Richards, Senator Favela, Senator Elefante, Senator Awa, Senator McKelvey, Senator Fukunaga, Aquino, Inouye, Kim, Decoit, and Kidani.
Thirteen ayes, 12 noes.
Oh, I was way off. Senate Bill 2342, CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 74-24, final reading of Senate Bill 3157, Conference Draft 1, relating to direct negotiation for public land leases.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? No vote for Senators Awa and Ihara.
23 ayes, 2 noes.
Thank you. SB 3157, CD1 passes final reading.
I'm sorry, Mr. President. I was so caught up in the previous vote that I was wanting to vote no on SB 3157 as well, if I may.
You want written comments? You want to speak to this?
No, I don't want to speak to it, just no vote.
Oh, a no vote?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So SB 3157, CD1, is that now 23 yes,
22 ayes, 3 noes.
3 noes? Okay.
Conference Committee Report Number 83-24, final reading of Senate Bill 2919, Conference Draft 1, relating to property.
Is there any discussion? If not, Senator Richards.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to disclose that I have a vacation rental. Will this pose a conflict for my vote?
Since this will affect all similar owners, you are in a class, therefore no conflict.
Thank you.
Further discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? No vote for Senators Richards, San Buenaventura, and Inouye.
22 ayes, 3 noes.
Thank you. SB 2919, CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 84-24, final reading of Senate Bill 2079, Conference Draft 1, relating to the importation of plants and animals.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? No vote for Senator Awa.
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. SB 2079, CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 100-24, final reading of House Bill 2471, Conference Draft 1, relating to inspections on public land.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? No vote for Senator Awa.
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. HB 2471, CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 106-24, final reading of House Bill 2563, Conference Draft 1, relating to the Hawaii Tourism Authority.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? No votes, Senators Awa, McKelvey, Inouye, Ihara.
21 ayes, 4 noes.
Thank you. HB 2563, CD1 passes final reading.
On page 36, Conference Committee Report Number 113-24, final reading of Senate Bill 2601, Conference Draft 1, relating to sexual abuse of minors.
Is there any discussion? If not, Senator San Buenaventura.
I stand in support with reservations.
Please proceed.
I fully supported the initial increase in statute of limitations about 10 years ago because I do know that there were incidents that had fallen through the cracks, but because of statute of limitations, these victims were not able to get the monetary amounts that they deserve. I fully supported also the removal of the statute of limitations for the criminal penalties because these abusers should not go unpunished. However, I do have problems with a 32-year statute of limitations where there was absolutely no testimony showing the benefits that this would occur, that would override the potential harm and cost to the child care providers, to schools, to the nonprofits, with an increase in insurance premiums. There had been no evidence that in any way, any cases had fallen through the cracks when I asked the advocates for why it is that they are increasing a 32-year statute of limitations. For those reasons, reservations.
Thank you. Further discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Senator San Buenaventura, McKelvey, Favela, Inouye, Kim, Morawaki. Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. SB 2601, CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 115-24, final reading of Senate Bill 2725, Conference Draft 1, relating to pass-through entity taxation.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. SB 2725, CD1, passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 119-24, final reading of Senate Bill 2439, Conference Draft 1, relating to limitation of actions.
Is there any discussion? Not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. SB 2439, CD1, passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 120-24, final reading of Senate Bill 2475, Conference Draft 1, relating to education.
Is there any discussion? Senator Kidani,
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support.
please proceed.
Colleagues, this bill, Senate Bill 2475, CD1, establishes a harm to students registry. This registry would be used for all early learning programs in schools, as well as all K-12 educational institutions within our state. This registry would contain information on school employees, contractors, or volunteers for whom, as a result of an investigation, a final finding has been issued that the individual has inflicted harm on a student. It will also include information on all persons who leave a school or institution before the investigation is complete. Many times, gaps in communication have allowed individuals who have caused harm to students to slip through the cracks, moving from one educational institution to another without consequence. By centralizing this information into a shared database accessible by both public and private institutions, we can more effectively prevent individuals with a history of misconduct from perpetuating further harm to our keiki. As the chair of the Senate Education Committee, I firmly believe that it is our foremost responsibility to ensure the safety and well-being of every student who walks through the doors of our schools. Mahalo, Mr. President. I now yield the floor.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Senator Favela,
Senate President, strong support.
please proceed.
If I can enter into the journal, the senator from Mililani's words as my own, please, thank you.
So ordered. Further discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. SB 2475, CD1, passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 123-24, final reading of Senate Bill 3207, Conference Draft 1, relating to education.
Is there any discussion? Senator Elefante,
Thank you, Mr. President. In opposition,
please proceed.
may I please be permitted to insert written remarks into the journal?
So ordered.
Thank you.
Further discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any reservations? Senator Richards, Senator Inoue, Senator Kim, Senator Decoit. Any no votes? Senators Elefante, Favela, Awa, McKelvey, Ihara.
20 ayes, 5 noes.
Thank you. SB 3207, CD1, passes final reading. Members, I have been informed that the House has adopted the budget, so we will be able to go through the rest of today's agenda as soon as we come back from a short recess, subject to the call of the chair. Will the Senate please come to order? Madam Clerk?
We're on page 36, Conference Committee Report Number 127-24, final reading of House Bill 1686, Conference Draft 1, relating to insurance.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? No vote for Senator Awa.
23 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. HB 1686 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 148-24, final reading of Senate Bill 1170, Conference Draft 1, relating to affordable housing credits.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? No vote for Senator Ihara, Senator Fukunaga.
22 ayes, 2 noes.
Thank you. SB 1170 CD1 passes final reading.
On page 37, Conference Committee Report Number 149-24, final reading of Senate Bill 3202, Conference Draft 1, relating to urban development.
Is there any discussion? Senator Elefante,
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in opposition.
please proceed.
May I request to insert written remarks into the journal?
So ordered.
Thank
Further
you.
discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? No votes for Senators Favela, Elefante, Awa, Fukunaga, Inoue, Ihara, Kim, Decoit, Rhodes.
Mr. President,
Senator Aquino?
please record a reservations vote, please.
So noted. Reservations for Senator Moriwaki. Reservations for Senator McKelvey and Gabbard.
16 ayes, 9 noes.
Thank you. SB 3202, CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 150-24, final reading of Senate Bill 1035, Conference Draft 1, relating to the general excise tax.
Is there any discussion? Senator, I'm going to defer to Senator De La Cruz.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of SB 1035.
Please proceed.
This measure seeks to improve the sustainability of our healthcare providers who operate in clinics outside of nonprofit hospitals, infirmaries, and sanitariums. The general excise tax exemption will allow those who provide Medicare, Medicaid, and TRICARE services in local clinics across our state. With Hawaii facing a chronic shortage of medical professionals, this GET exemption eases the financial burden for caring for patients that use these forms of health insurance. These are the primary outlets for care in rural and neighbor island districts and essential to those residents. I'd just like to read from the Hawaii Medical Association's testimony. The exemption is necessary as our most vulnerable patients, particularly those in underserved communities, cannot access local providers in a timely fashion to receive the diagnosis and treatment they desperately need. This exemption is a reasonable and essential step in the future survival and sustainability of Hawaii's healthcare. A big mahalo to the subject matter committee chairs for their hard work on this measure, and to the many doctors, healthcare professionals, and advocates who spent countless hours at the legislature in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator San Buenaventura?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to thank our WAM chair, as well as the
In
House.
support?
In support, strong
Please proceed.
support. I would like to thank our WAM chair, as well as the House, in passing this bill, and of course, Senator Inoue for introducing me to it. SB 1035, basically, as Senator De La Cruz has pointed out, not only helps the healthcare profession, but it corrects an injustice. The biggest injustice is that in helping take care of the most vulnerable and the kupuna, the federal government prevents our healthcare providers from passing on the GET tax. So unlike stores who are able to pass on the GET tax to consumers, our medical providers were actually being disincentivized by increasing their costs by 4.7%. So the reason why I want to thank our WAM and FIN chairs is that this is costing our Treasury around $70 to $84 million per year in lost revenue. However, look at it this way. That is how much expenses our medical providers are putting forth just to help take care of our most vulnerable, those accepting Medicaid, those accepting TRICARE, those accepting for Medicare. And for those reasons, I am in strong support, and thank you very much for our colleagues for supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion, Senator Kanuha?
Mr. President, may I have the words of the senators from Wahiawa and Puna entered into the journal as if it were my own?
So ordered. Senator Inoue?
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in strong support of SB 1035, Conference
proceed.
Committee Report 150, and I too want to thank the good senator from Wailua as well for his guidance on this measure, and the good senator from Puna for conferencing this measure to the end, and to her conferees as well as the House. I'm honored to have introduced Senate Bill 1035 on behalf of our local doctors, the dentists, and the healthcare workers. At the behest of constituents of mine from Hilo, who are local medical practitioners, I was urged to and gladly obliged in introducing SB 1035. Most healthcare providers on the Big Island practice in Hilo, and many of them serve patients from rural communities. This is a measure that seeks to provide much-needed relief to our healthcare providers and ultimately to the patients they serve. This measure aims to address the unsustainable taxation of healthcare services in Hawaii, particularly targeting our undeserved populations covered by Medicare, Medicaid, and TRICARE. As it stands, our healthcare system faces a daunting challenge: a dwindling number of providers willing and able to accept these essential forms of insurance. This issue not only threatens the financial stability of our healthcare providers, but also jeopardizes the accessibility and quality of care for most vulnerable citizens, especially those in our rural communities. The economic impact of SB 1035 cannot be overstated. The largest percentage of healthcare providers who have been negatively affected by the GED reside on the Big Island, Maui, and Kauai, and most of the rural areas on Oahu. By exempting healthcare and dental services from the GE tax for Medicare, Medicaid, and TRICARE patients, we stimulate our economy by removing unnecessary financial burdens on our families, the elderly, disabled adults, and individuals facing financial hardships due to disasters and unforeseen medical emergencies. Moreover, by incentivizing the recruitment and retention of healthcare practitioners, we create a ripple effect of economic growth, generating additional state and local taxes and creating thousands of new jobs across various sectors. But SB 1035 is not merely about economics. It's about equity and access to health care by eliminating the general excise tax on healthcare services. We demonstrate our commitment to ensuring equitable and universal access to care for all the residents of Hawaii. This bill promotes increased employment of healthcare workers and professional licensees, strengthening our healthcare infrastructure, and building resilience in the face of future challenges. I'm proud to have the support of our over 155 doctors, dentists, and nurses from various healthcare coalitions across our state. Their endorsement of SB 1035 speaks volumes about the urgent need for action and the widespread recognition of the positive impact this bill will have on our healthcare system and our community as a whole. And I urge my colleagues to support this important measure and joining me in taking a decisive step towards securing a healthier, more equitable future for all residents of Hawaii. And mahalo again to our colleagues who have carried this measure throughout the session. Mahalo to Senator De La Cruz, Senator San Buenaventura, and the colleagues on her conference committee as well, and all those that care for Hawaii and its people. Mahalo, Mr. President.
Thank you. Further discussion?
President.
Senator Kim, then Senator Favela.
I rise in support and ask that the words of the senators from Wahiawa and Puna be put in the journal as my own.
So ordered. Further discussion, Senator Favela.
Thank you, Senator President. Strong support.
Please proceed.
I enter into the journal from the senator from Hilo, Puna, and Wahiawa as my own into the journal. Thank you, Senator President.
Thank you. So ordered. Senator Decoy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Likewise, I'd like to thank the introducer of the bill from Hilo. I'd like to enter their comments into the journal as if it was my own. The senator from Puna as well, and a senator from Wahiawa. Coming from an island like Molokai, the most rural of rural islands, with the lack of transportation, and representing some of the most rural and isolated and underserved areas, I'm very grateful for the support and work that they have done on this bill. So mahalo and thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion, Senator Richards, then Senator McKelvey.
I rise in support.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to thank my colleague from Hilo, Puna, Kona, as well from Wahiawa for putting this forth. Primary health care, we struggle in Hawaii to get that. Rural primary health care is worse, and this is a step forward to help recruit those doctors to get that primary care. Our underserved constituents in those communities that are so removed geographically, this will help. I stand in strong support. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator McKelvey.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also stand in strong support.
Proceed.
Would like the words of all the previous speakers entered in the journals as if they were my own, just with the note that instead of Moloka'i, Lahaina be inserted in there. Also, you know, yes, there'll be a revenue loss to the state, but I think this adage holds true in this situation as in others. Sometimes you got to spend money to save money. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Further discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. SB 1035, CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 163-24, final reading of Senate Bill 2401, Conference Draft 1, relating to feral chickens.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? No vote for Senator Awa and McKelvey.
23 ayes, 2 noes.
Thank you. SB 2401, CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 165-24, final reading of Senate Bill 2837, Conference Draft 1, relating to the Oahu Regional Healthcare System, Hawaii Health Systems Corporation.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? No vote, Senator Awa.
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. SB 2837, CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 166-24, final reading of House Bill 1932, Conference Draft 1, relating to the Department of Transportation.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? No votes, Senators Awa and Ihara.
23 ayes, 2 noes.
Thank you. HB 1932, CD1 passes final reading.
On page 38, Conference Committee Report Number 169-24, final reading of House Bill 2404, Conference Draft 1, relating to income tax.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. HB 2404, CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 174-24, final reading of Senate Bill 3242, Conference Draft 1, relating to transportation.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Senator San Buenaventura.
I stand in opposition.
Please proceed.
I'm hoping that with the rise of AI, we could actually have more reasonable speed limits, especially in rural highways with no freeways, so that we don't have speed limit zones in the middle of the night at a time when people who are going across the island trying to get home will be able to get home at a timely manner without fear of being tagged with a speed infraction. For those reasons, I'm in opposition.
Further discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? No vote for Senator San Buenaventura. Any other no votes?
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. SB 3242, CD1 passes final reading. Senator De La Cruz?
Short recess, please.
No objection, short recess. Will the Senate please come back into order? Madam Clerk. Before going to the final reading fiscal consent calendar, Senator De La Cruz has requested point of personal privilege. Please proceed, Senator De La Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to share some comments on House Bill 2404.
Proceed.
The Senate Committee on Ways and Means meticulously examined 2404 relating to income tax, ensuring its potential to positively impact working families in Hawaii. The bill marked one of the most substantial income tax relief measures our state has ever passed. The proposed changes in CD1 are poised to reshape two fundamental pillars of Hawaii's tax framework over a 7-year period: the standard deduction and income tax brackets. By 2031, the tax burden on our working class families will decrease by astonishing 71%. Year by year, from 2024 through 2031, this legislation will steadily increase the standard deduction, reducing take-home pay from taxation. Recognizing that low and medium income households often forego itemized deductions, this measure is specifically tailored to alleviate their burden. Notably, for joint filers, the standard deduction will surge from $4,400 to a substantial $24,000 by 2031. Furthermore, in 2025, 2027, and 2029, the bill will recalibrate tax brackets, reducing rates and phasing out the lowest bracket to accommodate the rising tide of wages and inflation. Consider a family of 4 with a median household income of $88,000. By 2031, they stand to see their take-home pay swell by $3,613. Under prevailing tax laws, this family will be saddled with a $5,086 tax bill. Yet, with the implementation of these reforms, their tax obligation will shrink to $1,479. The hard work put forth by the Senate and House ensures that House Bill 2404 stands as an indispensable piece of legislation. It is a piece of legislation that demanded our unwavering support and our prompt enactment. Beyond serving our immediate needs, this bill casts a hopeful gaze toward the future, laying the groundwork for future generations to inherit a fairer and more equitable tax system. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Senator Gabbard, did you have a point of personal privilege? Since we recognize Senator De La Cruz, you don't have to wait till the end. You can wait till the end. Senator Keohukalole.
Thank you, Mr. President. Point of personal privilege.
Please proceed.
I'd like to adopt the words of the prior speaker and note that in my time in the Hawaii State Legislature, we have often been criticized for not taking direct action to address the cost of living. We are the legislature. We have the power of the purse to appropriate and tax. And by enacting this largest tax cut in, I believe, Hawaii history, this is without a doubt the most significant action and direct action that we have taken in this body to address Hawaii's cost of living in my time here. It is a major, it is an extremely significant action for our constituents. And I would like to thank again the Ways and Means Chair and the members of the committee for their hard work on this. It is just huge. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Kim.
Mr. President, thank you. I also rise on personal privilege.
Please proceed.
I also ask that the words of the 2 previous speakers be entered into the journal as my own. Thank you.
So ordered. Senator Sen Buenaventura.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also like to stand on a point of personal privilege, and I also would like to have the comments of Senators from Wahiawa and Kaneohe entered into my own. And I'd also like to point out, we have been disparaged by a number of advocates in not passing major tax credit bills this year. But I'd like to point out that we could stand with above all else, because we are not only helping those who are poor, but we have actually given a huge benefit to the middle class, which we have been told we keep forgetting every year. So I thank our RAM Chair for passing this. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Kanua, and then McKelvey.
Point of personal privilege.
Please proceed.
May I have the words of the senators from Wahiawa and Kaneohe entered into the journal as if it were my own?
Does the majority leader have any words of his own?
Yes.
So ordered, Senator Kanua. Senator McKelvey.
Thank you. Also rising on a point of personal privilege.
Please proceed.
Thanks for letting us do this over. I saw it go by and was like, wow, this is the biggest bill of the year. And it's going by with no conversation. Oh, well, and to have this do-over, if you will, because this is huge. I mean, this is like huge for the middle class. It also helps to blunt concerns, I'll say it, with the GET exemption bill. What about the rest of us? You know, it also helps to address that concern with tax credit bills that we fund, which go to certain sectors. So this is really mahalos, you guys. This is really big and couldn't come at a better time. So thank you again for letting me do this.
Thank you. Any other
President.
personal privilege? Senator DeCoit, then Morawaki.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise on a point of personal privilege.
Please proceed.
Likewise, I'd like to insert the comments from the Ways and Means Chair and Senator from Kaneohe as if they were my own in a time when many of us have argued, what about everybody else? I think this sends a clear message that the Senate's position has always been to care about those that have been suffering through the support of this body. So mahalo. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Morawaki.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also would like the comments of the chair of the Ways and Means Committee and the senator from Wahiawa and also the senator from Kaneohe as my own. I do want to say that we've been attacked many times for not addressing the cost of living, and this measure is very significant in doing that. So thank you.
Thank you. Senator Favela.
Thank you, Senate President. Personal privilege.
Please proceed.
First of all, I'd like to thank all my colleagues for learning me how to rise and say I want to put the words of Wahiawa Senator and the Kaneohe Senator in my own words into the journal, Senate President. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Senator Richards.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in personal privilege.
Please proceed.
I have to thank my colleagues for getting this done because reducing the cost of living here in our state, this is something we keep talking about. We've taken steps. We took steps with the medical GE tax reduction. And so this is another step forward for our state, for our people. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member? If not, I would just comment that we started thinking that the rest of us in Hawaii were going to have to make a shared sacrifice to help our ohana on Maui and help get them through terrible, terrible times that they were facing. And instead, the overall package that the Ways and Means Chair crafted in working with the Ways and Means Committee and the various committee chairs has resulted in an amazing product. And while I understand spending money to save money on the health, I believe part of his confidence, because he and I were elected in 2010, so I've been in the Senate with him every step of the way, is his strong desire and his energy to create economic development opportunities to generate the revenue that will pay for these cuts. And I'll be candid, not every idea he has had was successful, but every idea he has had, he has learned from. And failure has not been a reason to quit. Failure has been an inspiration for him to find a better way, a new way, and a different way. And so I will urge my colleagues to continue to work with Senator De La Cruz, not just on passing this bill and the help to the residents, but in the economic diversity that he is pursuing so that we can continue to support legislation like this. So to the Ways and Means Chair, thank you very much. Madam Clerk, can we get back to the fiscal calendar, please?
Beginning on page 38, final reading of the fiscal consent calendar. Beginning with Conference Committee Report number 112-24 on Senate Bill 3109, Conference Draft 1 on page 38, to Conference Committee Report number 186-24 on Senate Bill 3092, Conference Draft 1 on page 43.
Is there any discussion? Senator Elefante.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support for CCR 159-24, SB 2305, SD2, CD1, and may I be permitted to insert written remarks in support into the journal.
So ordered.
Thank you.
Further discussion? If not, Senator Favela?
Sorry, Senate President. A no vote for CCR 172-24, SP 2443, SD2, HD2 CD1. My no vote, please.
So noted, Clerk. Can you repeat the number again, please?
Sorry, too much numbers over here. It is relating to highway safety, SB 2443, SD1, 2 HD, 2 CD1.
Senator Favela, I believe that's on the fiscal ordinary, so you'll have a chance. This is the fiscal consent only. Further discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. All bills on the fiscal consent calendar from SB 3109 CD1 on page 38 to SB 3092 CD1 on page 43 pass final reading.
Final reading of the fiscal ordinary calendar. The first item is House Bill 1911, Conference Draft 1, which was the miscellaneous business item that was deferred to the beginning of this fiscal ordinary calendar. Final reading of House Bill 1911, Conference Draft 1, relating to the judiciary.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. HB 1911 CD1 passes final reading.
Turning to the fiscal ordinary calendar beginning on page 43, Conference Committee Report number 130-24, final reading of House Bill 1925, Conference Draft 1, relating to the Hawaii State Planning Act.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? No votes, Senator Awa.
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. HB 1925 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report number 132-24, final reading of House Bill 2248, Conference Draft 1, relating to beach management on the North Shore of Oahu.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Reservations, Senator Favela. Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. HB 2248 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report number 134-24, final reading of House Bill 2743, Conference Draft 1, relating to wastewater.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? No votes, Senator Awa.
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. HB 2743 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report number 146-24, final reading of Senate Bill 2284, Conference Draft 1, relating to a wildfire forecast system for Hawaii.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. SB 2284 CD1 passes final reading.
On page 44, Conference Committee Report number 154-24, final reading of House Bill 2619, Conference Draft 1, relating to agricultural biosecurity.
Is there any discussion? Senator Gabbard, then Senator De La Cruz.
I stand in strong support of HB 2619 CD1.
Please proceed.
Mr. President, colleagues, staff, and guests, you've seen them on the evening news and in the Star Advertiser and Civil Beat, and hopefully you haven't not encountered them in your home. Yes, I'm talking about little fire ants, coconut rhinoceros beetles, coqui frogs, coffeeberry borer, rose-ring parakeets, feral cats and chickens, two-line spittlebugs, and though they have not arrived yet, brown tree snakes. These are only some of the nasty critters who have invaded our island paradise. The reality is we're in a state of crisis for biosecurity. Invasive species threaten the livelihoods and well-being of our farmers, ranchers, and in fact, all of us. If we don't prioritize biosecurity now, we could soon see the collapse of our natural and food ecosystems across the state. That's why, as I finish my 8th year as your Agriculture and Environment Committee Chair, I'm excited to see this biosecurity bill pass out of conference and make it to the finish line. In my humble opinion, this bill is a masterpiece. It's been a long time coming. Biosecurity was one of the Senate's priorities this session and also the #1 priority for the Department of Ag. This bill designates the Department of Agriculture as the lead agency responsible for coordinating the state's invasive pest control and eradication biosecurity efforts. So no more scratching your head trying to figure out who's in charge here, the Department of Ag or Department of Land and Natural Resources. The bill includes $16.8 million to the Department of Ag related to the administration and implementation of their biosecurity program. It adds 44 new positions and $3.1 million, which includes 22 new plant quarantine branch inspectors to oversee plant materials, which are a key way of transporting these invasive pests. Remember the little fire ants that showed up at the Punahou Carnival this year? Another feature of this bill is that it requires the Department of Ag to post on their website real-time updates on pest infestations, including date, location, actions performed, and names of staff and organizations involved so that we know exactly what we're dealing with and who to contact at the Department of Ag if the problem is not being addressed. So I want to mahalo our esteemed WAM Chair, Senator Dela Cruz, and his staff, and his counterpart, Chair Yamashita in Finance over in the House, the Legislature, Department of Ag, and all the farming, ranching, agricultural stakeholders who collaborated to craft this comprehensive biosecurity package that reflects the urgency of this important matter. So colleagues, I urge you to vote yes on House Bill 2619 CD1. Mahalo.
Thank you, Senator Dela Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. President. Rising support.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to begin by thanking you and Senate leadership, the Senate Ag and Environmental Committee Chair, and the Ways and Means Committee members. Over the last several months, the Senate Committee on Ways and Means has worked diligently with Senate leadership and the committee chair, the Department of Agriculture, constituents, stakeholders, and House Finance to deliver a statewide biosecurity package that answers the call to address a long neglected list of persistent and challenging pests wreaking havoc across our state. The conference draft of House Bill 2619 appropriates $19,980,660 in general funds for fiscal year 24-25 to address statewide biosecurity programmatic costs and enhancements and invasive species mitigation and eradication. The Department of Ag said at Ways and Means info briefings at the beginning of session that biosecurity was a top priority. Estimated prevention costs for brown tree snake, Myconia, little fire ant, along with the rest of DOA biosecurity plan, totaled $38 million. However, no funding for biosecurity measures were included in the governor's draft of House Bill 1800. While remaining a top priority for the Senate, the current administration failed to address the state's inability to control the movement of known and unknown pests between the islands. For every dollar spent on biosecurity, the state is potentially saving $8,000 on the economic impacts that invasive species and diseases can bring. Recent biosecurity threats have fueled fears that an influx of new pests into the island of Maui will continue to wreak havoc on recovering communities receiving shipped goods to help in the years-long process of rebuilding Lahaina. Controlling the spread of coconut rhinoceros beetles, little fire ants, and other pests is increasingly critical as people recover and rebuild after August fires in West Maui. This session, the constantly changing landscape of biosecurity threats entering our state required diligence and dedication to provide for both the immediate and future needs of Hawaii's agriculture sector. The Senate understands the importance of protecting our precious resources and supporting local farmers. Without controlling and eradicating invasive species, our agricultural, tourism, and natural ecosystems would collapse beyond repair. That's why we make this historic appropriation dedicated to biosecurity in House Bill 2619, in addition to the state budget bill, to increase public transparency and government accountability in how these funds are spent. The highlights in conference draft of both House Bill 2619 and House Bill 1800 include funding for biosecurity threats and invasive pet management, including $16.8 million in programmatic costs, tech upgrades and equipment, 14 new positions and $3.1 million to conduct inspections at points of entry and plant nurseries statewide, and the conversion of 66 existing biosecurity positions to the general fund to free up the dedicated special and revolving funds to allow the DOA to immediately address emergency biosecurity threats statewide. While historic in context, these appropriations will not end our battle against the invasive species in our state. In fact, this is just the beginning in addressing foreign pests that threaten our native ecosystems and agricultural commodities. With new detections of coconut rhinoceros beetles in Waikoloa as recent as this past week, These landmark appropriations aim to assist the Department of Ag in their tireless efforts to mitigate and eradicate invasive species in our state. Mahalo to the Senate Ag and Environmental Committee, its chair, the Department of Ag Deputy Director, the staff and employees at the Plant Industry Division, and various stakeholders who have been advocating for years. I urge my colleagues to vote yes on this conference draft. And with your approval, Mr. President, I also have some written remarks I'd like to submit.
So ordered.
Mahalo.
Thank you. Further discussion, Senator Kim.
President, I also rise in support.
Please
and
proceed.
in the interest of time, I ask that the remarks from the senator from Kapolei be entered into the journal as my own. Thank you.
So ordered. Further discussion. Senator Richards,
Thank you. I rise in support.
please proceed.
I want to thank the chair from Ag and Environment, as well as the WAM chair, for supporting this and moving this forward. In my time here in the state, there's always been a concern for supporting agriculture, and we've talked long about supporting agriculture. This legislative session, we are really moving the needle for agriculture, and this is one step that the people out on the land, in the dirt, are finally feeling like they're being heard. Thank you, colleagues.
I'd like to thank the Ag Vice Chair as well. Senator Kanuha,
In support, Mr. President.
please proceed.
I have my own words that I'd like to submit to the journal in support of this historic measure as well. Thank you.
So ordered. Senator DeCoit.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to thank the Ag Chair. He's done an awesome job, as well as the WAM Chair, and those that have literally looked at everything that has happened within the ag industry in the past years. As a farmer myself, the challenges that we've faced, we've come to realize that, there are different and other techniques and proper management tools that are out there. But first and foremost is to stop the spread of invasive species. So in this case, remarkable legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion, Senator Keoho Kalole.
Thank you, Mr. President. Also in support. I truly appreciate the work of the Ag Chair and the WAM Chair devoting this this amount of support toward this effort. When outbreaks of invasive species became known to us in the community on the windward side of Oahu and in my district, but on up the coast in the summertime of last year, we met with the Department of Agriculture, and they rightfully, at the end of the conversation, put back on me a question that I knew was coming, which was, are you going to help support us in the funding that we need in order to address these issues? And so, once again, at least on this issue today, the Senate has made a commitment to do so and back up its words with actual support, so I'm deeply appreciative of that. I also look forward to working with the Department of Agriculture, their director, their deputy, their Plant Industry Division leadership. Every day this interim, I'm going to be working with them to make sure that in addition to actually doing the work on the ground, that they judiciously commit this money toward their legislative mandates that have been in existence since the beginning of this state's admission into the union, which include holding commercial operators responsible for their share of the burden, which is not the entirety of the problem. But I look forward to that. I'm excited to see this commitment and the work to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Further discussion, Senator Inouye.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too rise in support of HB 2619 as one of the few farmers here in our chamber. It has been a challenging measure, and I'm so happy that the chair of the WAM committee and agriculture as well worked diligently, because this was very challenging for an industry as well and the communities throughout the state. Thank you so much for all the good work you've been doing. Mahalo.
Thank you. Further discussion, Senator Favela.
Yes, Senate President, I rise in professional privilege. I strongly support of this bill. Since I've been in this square building, not only working with Senator Gabbard over the years, the WAM chair took us on tours on the neighbor islands, and believe it or not, it was a lot of looking into what we can provide for the neighbor islands and going forward. And I learned a lot on these tours, and I really like it. Knowing that the farmers were struggling with invasive species, and it was in a level that, you know, as living here in Oahu in a dry climate in Eva Beach, and we only have the rhinoceros beetle running around, you didn't realize how much of our agricultural community is suffering by not having the backing and boots on the ground, like Senator Keo Kolole said. So we need to make sure that we support our agriculture and our farmers going forward. And again, I really thank the WAM chair and the agriculture chair on this. And then I want to insert additional comments to the General Senate President.
So ordered. Further discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. HB 2619 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 172-24, final reading of Senate Bill 2443, Conference Draft 1, relating to highway safety.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Discussion? Any reservations? Any no votes? No vote for Senators Favela, Awa, McKelvey. No vote for Senator San Buenaventura.
21 ayes, 4 noes.
Thank you. SB 2443 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 175-24, final reading of Senate Bill 2240, Conference Draft 1, relating to elections.
Is there any discussion?
Mr. President.
Senator Rhodes.
In support.
Please proceed.
In general, our elections here in Hawaii are free, fair, votes are counted correctly, there's very little fraud. There is a vulnerability that I've been concerned about for several years, and that is, of course, we have a lot of tourists who come and stay for part of the year, and there's really no way to cross-check our records against the records of the states that they came from to see whether they're registering to vote both here and somewhere else. This bill will start to address that. The Electronic Registration Information Center Incorporated is a consortium of 24 other states in the District of Columbia, where we will share our information about who's moving from state to state, so to ensure that we don't have people voting in multiple states. And I think that does address probably our biggest voting vulnerability here in Hawaii. So mahalo to the WAM chair for finding the money for this and for moving it along. I think it will be a useful addition to keeping our elections free and fair. Mahalo.
Thank you. Further discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? No vote for Senator Awa.
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. SB 2240 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 177-24, final reading of Senate Bill 2085, Conference Draft 1, relating to the State Fire Marshal.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. SB 2085 CD1 passes final reading.
Conference Committee Report Number 184-24, final reading of Senate Bill 582, Conference Draft 1, relating to state budget.
Is there any discussion, Senator De La Cruz?
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support.
Please proceed.
I'd like to thank again Senate leadership, subject matter chairs, and the Ways and Means Committee members who's worked diligently with state departments, NGOs, constituents, stakeholders, and our House counterparts to address recovery efforts and support those affected by the 2023 Maui wildfires. This includes funding for the One Ohana Fund and temporarily extending restrictions on the use of the Major Disaster Fund. In addition, SB 582 CD1 also bolsters the Pension Accumulation Fund. Through this collaboration, our committee has found funding gaps in the state's immediate recovery efforts. This bill fills these gaps with a focus on long-term recovery and transparency. The conference draft appropriates $297 million in general funds for fiscal year 2023-2024, which includes $72 million $500,000 for non-congregate housing for individuals impacted by wildfires who have been classified as not eligible for FEMA assistance, and $65 million to fund the state's contribution to the One Ohana Fund to compensate individuals or personal representatives affected by serious physical injury or death. This bill further requests the Department of Budget and Finance and the Department of Human Services to submit a report on the 7th day of each month on the details pertaining to the expenditures, contracts, liabilities, and use of resources related to the wildfires. In conclusion, mahalo to the subject matter chairs, committee members, and for their countless hours spent on this measure, and our House counterparts. I urge my colleagues to vote yes on the conference draft. Mahalo.
Thank you. Further discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. SB 582, CD1 passes final reading.
On page 45, Conference Committee Report Number 187-24, final reading of House Bill 2340, Conference Draft 1, making appropriations for claims against the state, its officers, or its employees.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. HB 2340, CD1 passes final reading.
Referrals and re-referrals.
Referrals and re-referrals are made in accordance with the supplemental orders of the day that may be filed later today.
On page 45, miscellaneous communication number 2 transmits a legislative communication from the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House extending the 2024 Conference Committee report and conference draft filing deadlines.
File.
On pages 45 and 46, miscellaneous business, reconsideration of disagreement to House amendments, motions to agree. Senate Concurrent Resolution Number 1, House Draft 1, Senate Concurrent Resolution Number 2, House Draft 1, and Senate Concurrent Resolution Number 146, House Draft 1.
Senator Lee.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate reconsider its previous action in disagreeing to the amendments made by the House to SCR numbers 1, 2, and 146 and agree to said amendments.
Senator Wakai.
Mr. President, I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Senator Lee.
Thank you, Mr. President. For these measures before us, for the first measure on SCR 1, the House only changed the dates to which the measure applies, and for the other two, they made non-substantive technical amendments.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Any objections? If not, the motion is carried. One-day notice is hereby given for final adoption of SCR 1, HD 1, SCR 2, HD 1, and SCR 146, HD 1.
No further business, Mr. President.
Are there any announcements today? Senator Gabbard.
Mr. President, I have a point of personal privilege.
Please proceed.
I wanted to enter some comments into the journal on HB 2298, CD1.
So ordered.
Thank you.
Any further announcements? Senator
Mr.
Moriwaki?
President, point of personal privilege. I
Please
have
proceed.
comments also on the House Bill 2224 on the long-term care plan. I'd like to insert into the journal.
So ordered. Further announcements? If not, Senator Wakari.
Mr. President, I rise on a point of personal privilege.
Please proceed.
Members, amongst all the historic bills we passed today, one of the most important is that we passed the Shaka bill. And Hawaii becomes the first state in America to recognize this as our Hawaii's official state gesture. So, Mr. President, I ask that as we gavel out for today's session, that we rise on a moment of Shaka. And members, if you're willing, don your lace, and we're going to look this way over to Thompson, who will record this momentous occasion. Thank you, Mr. President.
So ordered. Any further announcements? If not, Senator Wakai.
Oh yeah, I got plenty of things to say at the end here.
You need to officially move it now.
Yes, I officially move that the Senate stand adjourned until 10:30 on Friday, May 3rd.
And adjourn with the rising Shaka.
Oh yes, and adjourn with a moment of Shaka.
Senator Decoit.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. If there are no objections from the members, the Senate will stand adjourned until 10:30 a.m. Friday and will adjourn with a rising shaka.